Well, I want to wrap up with two more concerns that you may want to think about in terms of managing a security incident. The first is a natural disaster. Early on in the semester, we talked about natural disasters as a security concern simply because you do have to have a contingency plan. And if you're thinking about security using the CIA TRAD, the availability part can definitely be threatened by a natural disaster. Typically, this is going to be something that you would be able to mitigate rather than prevent. So, your contingency plan would include mechanisms so that people in your organization know how to react in case of an emergency and what resources need to be protected, including physical assets, not just the software that you're talking about. And also a long term mitigation plan. So, some of these natural disasters are things that will only have an effect, an immediate effect, and then after you recover, you're ready to continue normal operation. Others, like for example, a flood that causes damage that would need to be repaired in the building, may have implications that last for months, possibly years, in the case of something like the coronavirus. So the mitigation plan would have to address both short-term concerns as well as long-term concerns with natural disasters. Now, the textbook doesn't really cover a whole lot on natural disaster response, even though I actually think most organizations, if you're going to see a serious security incident that you can actually still recover from, it would be a natural disaster because you're not compromised, like your organizational data isn't compromised by a natural disaster. It's really just that availability piece that has been damaged through a natural disaster. And you're not going to take the same kind of a PR hit with a natural disaster that you would from a security incident. So, for example, the Target data breach was a major PR problem for Target, but I don't think the coronavirus is particularly problematic for Target from a PR standpoint. It's hard to blame Target for something like that. So there are differences, but this is something that you still want to have a contingency plan for in your organization. The second thing I wanted to mention is this notion that we can mitigate the interception of sensitive information as a part of our organizational policy. And this is something that most organizations probably should be doing but aren't doing because it's a very routine piece of operations, right? You want to make sure that optical media is destroyed in some way so that you're not accidentally giving out sensitive data when you buy a new system or you bring new computers online. So all of the hard drives from your previous set of computers in the enterprise need to be written several times or just destroyed or degaussed or something like that to prevent any sensitive business information from being available on whoever ends up ultimately getting access to the equipment after you've sort of deallocated it. This is the kind of thing that is pretty significant security issue that happens quite a lot in traditional organizations. I remember a number of incidents that were actually HIPAA violations, healthcare violations, where CVS or some other pharmacy just decided to throw in the dumpster patient records that they were no longer required to maintain by their own internal policies. That does still provide an attacker plenty of information to do identity theft, right? Medical information is basically everything you would need to do identity theft. Plus, it's also the kind of thing that's not going to change all that much. Like your blood type does not change over the course of your life. So it's the sort of thing that would be continuously useful for organizations on into the future. And these two parts of the plan, both the natural disaster and the general notion of mitigating sensitive information loss, they don't easily fit into incident response, but they are things that have to go into the ongoing management of an information security program, especially for large organizations where you have tons and tons of systems and tons of data. All right, so everything that we talked about today, basically a security plan is both an official record of your current practice and also a blueprint for responding to and improving upon that practice. So it includes not just specific plans for incidents, but also long-term, orderly, careful considerations for ongoing emergencies, very similar to the coronavirus. I do think risk analysis is useful. It's imperfect. There are problems with it. We talked a little bit about some of the issues with risk analysis. But you have to have something, and risk analysis does have quite a few benefits or arguments in its favor for the role that it's trying to fulfill. And then, of course, the textbook does talks a little bit more about the specifics of natural disasters, and I would refer you to that for ongoing maintenance.